Hello everybody, welcome to this webinar about mobile gaming and monetization. Thank you for your time to listen to this. Just going to give you a few short introductions and then we'll go into the insights. My name's Jonathan, I'm a research director at Harris Interactive. I've many years of working experience across technology, media and entertainment sectors, conducting research and insights across new product development, brand comms, market segmentations, all types of different types of studies. Just to also introduce what a little bit about Toluna and Harris. So what makes Toluna unique? We provide cutting-edge solution technologies that enable agile and intelligent research via our innovative platform, Toluna Start, an end-to-end software as a service research solution. Via Harris Interactive, we provide end-to-end custom research services to drive innovation, brand and marketing strategies. And via our Toluna Influencers panel, we provide access to over 30 million consumers in 70 plus countries. This study, we conducted this study to follow up on our gaming monetization study in 2019, which was presented at the Market Research Conference. Market Research Society conference. We wanted to follow up on this study to look at mobile gaming specifically. This study was conducted across 5 countries: US, France, Germany, and Australia and UK. And we interviewed 1,000 mobile gamers in each country, or they could be interested in mobile gaming as well. The fieldwork was conducted just before Christmas. So just going straight into the key findings. So we wanted to ask about all the different types of monetization models that gamers could come across at the moment. It's a very dynamic sector with lots of different ways to pay or to play. So we looked at, just to explain, we looked at the kind of freemium models, so free to download with ads, free to download with in-app purchases, and free to download with the games that use both in-app purchases and ads as well. We also asked about pay to download, that's without in-app purchases, and pay to download with in-app purchases. And finally, we also asked about subscriptions. These are becoming more prominent in the industry. So that's subscriptions to play downloaded games, i.e. the Apple Arcade model, and subscriptions to play streamed games, i.e. models such as like GeForce Now, etc. And we asked about which types of these models actually encourage people to play more, which ones would they that have no impact on selection, and which would they try to actually avoid to actually play. As you'd expect, the free to downloads really do encourage people to play. We did find, though, once you start layering on different monetization options, such as there are free to download games that do both in ads and in-app purchases as well, that's where you start to see people being put off. So it's where you've got multiple layers. Pay to download, interestingly, even without the in-app purchases, was much less popular. But then when you actually start layering in-app purchases there, that's where you really do start to see people avoiding it. With subscription, currently it doesn't seem to be so popular, but I wouldn't say that would be how it would be ongoing. I think as this becomes more mainstream, that you'll see more acceptance of that model. But it does actually show you, in terms of the strategy, if you're breaking into the market with a new game or into a new genre, potentially you might want to use free to download as the kind of first way to get into the market, and then maybe pay to download later on. And the reason I say that is that you don't really want to ignore the pay to download as a strategy, because we asked gamers about which of the types of games that they actually played in the last 12 months, and how many types of those games have they played as well. And we actually found that even though free to play was more popular, it does seem to encourage more of those sort of casual gamers who play less games. Whereas where you actually get gamers who use strategies with layer on different models or have the actual pay to download up front, they actually play more of those kind of games. And so this really does show that you could there's kind of a generating reach strategy with free games, and then maybe more immersive, getting those more immersed gamers when you actually offer pay to download. Obviously, with subscription games, that obviously has the largest number of games because of the selection that people get just with that subscription payment. We wanted to sort of delve a bit deeper into the types of monetization models. So, for instance, with free to play and with ads, what types of ads are gamers actually seeing, and what's the extent to which they like those types of ads or dislike them? And the industry does seem to be going the right way at the first instance. So rewarded ads, we all know what they are. So you watch a video or a static ad and you get in-game rewards such as extra lives or levels for watching those ads. They were very much liked and they had the highest sort of awareness. However, the next one down, very close, is screen takeovers, and we saw very high levels of dislike for screen takeovers. Furthermore, banner ads too, with high levels of awareness, but high levels of dislike as well. What the industry is doing less of is utilizing rewarded task ads. So that takes rewarded ads a next step and actually immerses people more by getting them to complete a task or fill in a survey to give an opinion in order to obtain rewards within the game, and playable or interactive ads as well. So mini games within a game that has a sort of advertising element to it. Now, these did seem to have higher likability, but lower awareness. So that's something you might want to think about with your strategy if you are using advertising. We also asked about, we asked the mobile gamers that were making in-app purchases, how many had actually made an in-app purchase in the last 12 months, and how many of those do they actually do? And of the 76% of mobile gamers who say they had made in-app purchases, only 59% actually downloaded made one in the last 12 months. But once you're actually getting them to make in-app purchases, they do about 2 a week. So really key to actually get people to, if you are using that model, to, you could widen that by potentially doing more research and understanding and optimizing your pricing models and what types of items that you're offering and what are the most popular, and to really kind of maximize that opportunity to get people to make more of those kind of in-app purchase and engage them. And interestingly, when we asked about the types that they used, 50%, the top one was in-game currency. So that seems to be utilized a lot. And obviously that's a way to then get people, once they've got the in-game currency, that's an enabler for them to then purchase other items within the game. We did find the sort of loot boxes and sort of more of the pay-to-win type elements were the less popular ones. What does that mean for you? What we'd say is that to get the wider reach in the market, that use the free games, but think about the type of model that you want to use. Those games that layer on multiple ways of paying or watching ads, those are the ones that actually are less popular. Don't ignore the pay to download market though, because that's where you get the higher engagement. And that's something you could do as you get more established in the market. In terms of your advertising models, you could make more use of interactive ads and reward task ads, those ones that are a bit more immersive, and potentially they could be an avenue to getting to making some forms of payment more acceptable, or obtaining in items in games which require people that help people to win. Potentially, you could integrate that more. We'll see that later on. And then think about optimizing your in-game purchase model as well to try and encourage payment or to get people more immersed into that sort of model if you can with more research. So we asked about the other area that we looked at. There's a number of areas we looked at, but another area we looked at was how satisfied people were with different areas of mobile gaming in general. So we asked about transparency of mobile game costs, value for money, ease of finding games that they want to play, the quality of games, and that they offer a fair challenge. And generally, we did see high levels of satisfaction. So, well done. You are doing okay. But I think there are areas you do need to maybe address, which is the transparency of game costs. We had 1 in 4 people who said that they were dissatisfied with transparency of mobile game costs. Also value for money, 1 in 5 said that they were dissatisfied with value for money. and nearly 1 in 5 can't actually easily find the games they want to play, which is huge. I mean, you could really, you know, there are gaps, and we'll come to that later on, where you could really sort of fulfill needs that aren't being met at the moment. We also asked about, it's all very well people saying they're dissatisfied, but actually what impact is that having on purchase decisions? And we asked about that. You know, what's their perception of how fair a publisher is in terms of their monetization? What impact does that have on their propensity to purchase? And we found that 23% said it had a really big impact on their propensity to use that particular publisher, and over 50%, over half of people, 61% of people said that it had some kind of impact on their decisions. So that's huge. And if a quarter of the market are dissatisfied with the transparency of costs, you could really differentiate yourself in the sector by offering more transparency in the way that you monetize games. We went further and asked people what types of, you know, where you could pay for games or use ads for in-app purchases, which were most appropriate for the specific type of purchase. And for purchasing, for actually paying for the items, in-game currency was seen as the most appropriate, and then skins and cosmetics. Excuse me. Skins and cosmetics were up there, new maps and levels and DLC. Obviously, those items which people deemed more as kind of pay to win or had more gambling elements were much less acceptable in terms of payment. But for you, actually advertising was seen as more appropriate for those types of things. And then if you think about the fact that people actually liked interactive ads, or ads where you completed a task or something to actually gain an item, that could actually make it more acceptable for those pay to win elements if people were to view ads to gain those, or interactive ads, because you still have to do something to get those, but it still incorporates a method of monetization as well. So I think that's a really interesting insight there. The other thing, we actually then got them to put their cards on the table and actually tell us which ones would you, which of these methods would you prefer to obtain these different items. And we added in there, would you just prefer to win these items through your skill, or actually would you prefer to pay for it even over that? And interestingly, you know, at least half, a bit more of respondents generally did prefer to pay or watch ads. It was mainly to watch ads. But obviously there's a large minority there, nearly half, who still want to be able to win these items through skill. Well, why else would you play a game? But it does sort of show that you do need to balance, you know, if you're offering these models where you're offering these items and you have to pay for them, you do need to think about making your game fair and the right level of challenge as well. And I say that because that might sound obvious, but when we asked people why they were dissatisfied with the fairness of mobile games, 46% said that they thought gaming developers are making games harder, so you have to pay to win. So, you know, that's something that you have to really sort of bear in mind, and that kind of contributes to potentially that lack of perception of transparency in terms of costing as well. So making the most of your monetization, you should address concerns around cost transparency. In the main, that's not saying that everyone's annoyed, but 1 in 4 mobile gamers were dissatisfied, and you have got high levels of satisfaction. But if you really want to be able to differentiate yourself in the sector, if you can offer more transparency around that, think of more clever ways to monetize your offering, and ways that may be more acceptable depending on the type of item, that could really differentiate you in the sector. And you know, considering the mix of ads and pay to play, pay to win, and offering a fair challenge is really key as well. And making sure that your gamers are happy with those different aspects and the balance is really key as well. So looking at gaps in the market, we asked about the different genres that people were interested in terms of mobile gaming, and the genres that they actually play. And was really surprised to see that across all the genres, there is a high contingent of gamers who actually were interested in playing but hadn't actually played. So that's all very well. You know, you will get people on a survey, they'll just say, well, I'm interested in it, but you know, I'm probably not that engaged. So what we did is go one step further and asked about which genres couldn't they actually find the games they wanted. Is it, what is it, that aspect of it? I want to play that genre. I go and look for a game in that genre. I can't find a game that I want to play that's within it. It's not meeting my needs. And really interestingly, we found those more immersive types of genres like adventure games, role-playing games. So what we did, just sorry, on this chart, was we plotted the proportion that were interested in playing in this y-axis and the proportion that can't find the games they want on this axis. So if it's a genre is high in terms of interest and high in terms of the games they can't find, then that's a gap in the market. So if you've got a genre sitting in this box here, then sorry, in the top right box, then that means that that there's a gap there that you really could fulfill. And we do see that it's those more immersive games like adventure games, strategy games, simulation, role-playing, those kinds of games. People are trying to find games they want to play on mobile, and they can't find those games that they actually want to play. And we suggest definitely, if you really want to be able to fill those gaps, then there's more research you could do around that to understand why needs aren't being addressed. Is it the monetization? Is it more about the way that those games are positioned? Or, so, mobile games are very different in some ways to console games. The gap's closing, but it's very a very interesting finding we've there. The other thing was that, with the pandemic over the last 12 months, we found people are playing more games across platforms. Mobile has seen a big uplift, as well as other devices. That's also worth bearing in mind, cross-platform, and also games that maybe utilize more than one device. So I think I've played a game once where you would play it on the big screen, but you had a sort of user interface or a sort of radar thing that was on your phone as well. And that, I think, this is an opportunity really to kind of really offer more interesting ways to combine devices in this kind of environment, particularly as people are a lot more immersed at the moment and have time on their hands. So just to round up in terms of the gaps in the market, there are many gaps there, and there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of needs that could need to be fulfilled. And there's many genres where you can address those unmet needs. They do seem to be in the more immersive sectors, such as adventure, strategy, racing, simulation and management, those sort of more casual dice and puzzle games and that kind of thing, where maybe those gaps have already been filled, really. And so just on to the last aspect of this webinar, we also asked about streaming. And sort of more subscription-based sort of models in general, but this was positioned more as just streaming. We asked about the different services and what was being used and what people intended to subscribe to. Obviously, this is claim data, but we did find that Xbox Game Pass Ultimate had the highest claimed level of subscription, and also a high level of interest too. But you can see that even with the services that have less people playing, there's actually quite a high level of interest, although there's still barriers to a lot of people as well, or people that are not aware of them. And we put Apple Arcade in there just as a sort of benchmark to see how, because obviously Apple Arcade is subscription, but it's download, how that would compare to the more sort of streaming based services. Obviously with Xbox Game Pass, streaming is just an element of that. But interesting nonetheless. We asked about also what type of device they would want to stream on, what they prefer to stream on. So this isn't based on what they can actually stream to at the moment. It's more what they would prefer. And we found actually with, say, Google Stadia or GeForce Now, Vortex, there was more of a mobile sort of preference there, whereas, say, Xbox Game Pass and Amazon Luna, more of a preference for desktop there. But generally, there's a lot of potential, obviously, for streaming on mobile. That's where people can see a benefit there. And we actually asked about those people who were aware of streaming services, and when you actually bundle it all together, most people are aware of at least one streaming service. We asked about which would they find more appealing, games that you could download from an app store or games that you could prefer to stream. When it was positioned this way, we actually found amongst those that were aware of streaming, 35, but more of them actually preferred streaming to downloaded games. Slightly more, anyway. There was a high proportion that would be happy with both, but it does highlight at least the fact that streaming could become a bigger thing, and this is a sort of canary in the coal mine potential situation. When we asked them why they would prefer streaming, 36%, it's not the highest reason, but 36% said it was the future of gaming. But they also, the main reasons, better quality games was one of the areas. And again, filling those gaps in genres on mobile games and why people aren't finding the games they want, that could potentially be an element as well. Better value for money, that was seen as, and more variety of games as well. And also you would get that console PC. Obviously these streaming services give you access to those console and PC games on mobile phones. We did also ask about downloads and downloaded games and why people prefer those. And of course, as we saw earlier in the presentation, at least half of those people said that they just don't like paying subscriptions. There's a third that would worry about streaming quality. So those are concerns. But I think those types of barriers could well become less of an issue as these things become more mainstream and people get more used to 5G technologies as well. And in terms of payment, you know, many companies are going on to subscription models. So, you know, I think definitely one to watch with streaming, even with the news we've heard about Google Stadia, and they may not be actually developing their own games. There's still quite a momentum there, I think, in the market. And particularly as people start to go out more post-COVID, they might want to be looking to do this sort of thing. So game streaming is set to grow. It's definitely worth looking at it and understanding it more. And also, you know, those people, we actually did find those people who are more aware of the streaming services, that they preferred streaming to game downloads. So it's definitely an area that could grow. And I personally think that it may not be, you know, remain a niche thing as time goes on, as technologies get better and streaming gets better. So that rounds up the webinar and the insights. I hope you found it very useful. We also have a bigger report that looks at lots of all the country differences as well. We focused on the sort of global findings for this one, obviously with the time we've got, but there's more in there as well. There's you can download it, or you can book in time for further insights. So you can actually look at mobile gaming brands and how they're perceived, which ones are perceived as fair, which ones are not seen as fair. Also mobile game brands in terms of converting to awareness and usage. So the games themselves, which games are actually being have highest awareness, which games are able to keep loyal user bases. So all that information is in the bigger report. Also, if you wanted to book time to talk about how we could help you with some of these areas, like understanding needs around gaps in genres, optimizing your monetization strategy, optimizing your advertising strategy, would be happy to book a meeting in with you. And just to also say, we can also give you a run through of our Toluna Start platform, which is a software as a service end-to-end research platform, which has been in the market only late last year, so very innovative tool. Thank you very much for your time, everyone.